Are you looking to do deals and master flipping houses? Welcome to the Do Deals Show with our host, Mr. Tim Mai. As a successful investor and mentor to many real estate investors, Tim's students consistently run 6- and 7-figure investing businesses. Each week, you'll hear from top real estate investors who share the best strategies, systems, and secrets that you can use to be more successful. Tim and his guests will pull back the curtain for you to learn their exact tactics, tricks, and tools that are working best right now in today's real estate market. Now, let's welcome Mr. Tim Mai.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to this interview. Today, I have Ivan Oberon on the line with us. Make sure I pronounce that correctly. And from Paradigm Funding, paradigmfunding.com. Ivan is a real estate investor, also a private lender, and he also works with other investors, other private lenders, funding on big deals. We're talking about $2 to $15 million kind of deal, and he hasn't been doing this that long ago, 7 years ago, but I mean, extraordinary success. So I'm really excited to do this interview today. Welcome, Ivan.
Thanks for having me, Tim. I'm excited too, man. And it's like everybody's journey. Hasn't been without struggle.
Yeah. So share with us that. Like, how did you get started in real estate investing? And then how did you get into the private lending niche within that?
Sure. I'll give a little bit of a background. I think like many people that make some changes in their life, it's usually pain or pleasure, right? So for me, I was experiencing some pain. I went through a divorce back in 2009, and I was in the insurance industry. And the difficult part for me, the pain was that I was working for an agency that's owned by my ex-in-laws, and my ex-wife is still the office manager. So I came home one night and then back to work, going through this divorce. I didn't know what to do, but I was very uncomfortable. I reached a point that I like to call constructive discontent, but I couldn't leave because I have a mortgage I'm responsible for. I have 2 daughters to support, and my in-laws didn't want me to leave because I was their top producer. So what do I do? Well, about a year and a half later, the idea of flipping houses came to mind. And I didn't know anything about real estate at the time, Tim, but I knew that more wealth had been created in and through real estate than any other asset class out there. And I knew that I didn't want to show up to the work I was doing anymore. So even though it wasn't as mainstream as it is today, I found a seminar. And I went to that seminar. I got my education. And I just went out there and decided that if I was going to be successful as an entrepreneur, because that's what we are, right, Tim?
Right.
We're entrepreneurs. You got to figure out how to add value to other people. And I decided that I was going to add value to a specific group of people, that being private money investors who are either dissatisfied with their current rates of return or they don't like the unsecured nature of the stock market. And within 3 months of making that decision, I'd raised a little over $500,000 in cash.
Wow.
And just because I was excited, right? We talk in this business and entrepreneurship a lot about passion. And sales, right? Because we're all in sales.
Yep.
And at its most basic level, sales is a transfer of enthusiasm. So I had the education so I could talk a little bit about what we were going to do and what the outcomes were supposed to be. And I was also excited. I had a passion for believing that this was going to be the way. So I started flipping houses in San Diego County, and after a few successful flips there, I actually branched off to Indianapolis, Indiana, and then I started doing rentals in Kansas City, Missouri. And I'll be honest with you, talking about the pain and the tribulation, my second year in the business, you probably heard similar stories. I lost everything.
Oh, wow.
I was at the top of my game, and I was, I had all the momentum, and I was ready to go, but what I lacked was the experience. And so I trusted the wrong person. I was far away, and pretty soon, I went through a period where there was a guy embezzling money from us, and
Oh, wow.
and so. But we overcame that. We learned a lot of lessons through that and rebuilt my investor base. I was doing rentals in Kansas City, and I was partnered up with my buddy Pete, who we had done real estate investment clubs together. We're doing all the right things just to grow our network. And I was ready to come back to California, but I wanted to operate in the luxury space. And
Is that your dad in the van?
my dad just came by to say hello. And so I had this capital stack, and I was doing smaller deals in Kansas City, And what happens when you have money, but you don't have the right amount of deals to deploy it on? Well, the money wants to go somewhere else, right? Where you're going to get the money deployed. So right around that time, my partner Pete introduced me to Ryan Garland, who's the CEO of Paradigm Funding, and he's been in the business for a little over 12 years, and he already had the reputation and the systems in place, and we had the capital.
Gotcha.
So we started partnering because he was already getting all the deals. So the way that the partnership developed was you get all these high level developers and rehabbers doing these higher end deals coming to him for debt financing. We had this private money, so we decided, why don't we put together more of a 100% financing type product? Because everybody loves money, and the more money you get, the more deals you can get done, right?
Right.
So instead of having to come up with your own gap funds, in most cases, the borrowers just need to come in with their EMD, and then we'll cover interest reserves. We cover the majority of the points and fees and closing costs and soft costs to carry the project for, say, 6 months to 12 months and get that deal done. And like you said, we've done small deals as low as $1 million ARVs all the way up to $15 million deals.
I love how you say small deal is $1 million ARV. That's awesome.
So that's funny that you mentioned that, because yes, there is a paradigm shift that happens, right? Because when I started, I was doing these $450,000, $500,000 properties, and when you go through these seminars, it's like very typical that every rehab is $40,000 to $60,000, and it's going to take you this a month to a month and a half to do, and all this kind of stuff. And now we're dealing with stuff where our smallest rehab numbers are about $350,000.
Wow.
All the way up to construction of $4 million when you're doing teardowns and brand new custom homes.
Wow, that's crazy.
But they're just dollars, all right? They're just numbers.
Right, it's just an
That's
extra
all.
zero, right?
It's just an extra zero, and it just takes time. You got to develop the relationships, and then you have to leverage. You have to have the right relationships to leverage off of. And when you have good developers with good resumes, it makes it easier. With, of course, a quality asset and a quality location, it makes it a lot easier to go out there and present that stuff to private investors to bring in the capital, because there's more security for that.
Gotcha. Okay. And just out of curiosity, like, which one do you like more? Or I guess it depends, like the private lending side of the business or the flipping side of the business?
Well, I can tell you that when you get into this business, you're not really sure what you're going to be good at. Right? Unless you're already a contractor and that's your business, then you start flipping houses, you're going to be good at that. But one of the things that you need to do is you need to learn how to manage contractors, how to manage money, how to manage realtors, how to do all these different things as a flipper or rehabber yourself, right? Well, what I realized early on was that I was no good at babysitting contractors. I didn't like doing it. I wasn't good at it. I didn't have the passion for it. But I was very good at talking to investors, and I enjoyed that. So I would say that because of the experience that we have and the relationships that we've built and the reputation that we've built, I've been able to, and my partner Pete and I have been able to raise this private capital, and I like that better. That's why I like having a quality developer that comes in, brings us the project, and then they manage everything. They manage the contractors, they manage the GCs, they do that stuff. And even when we have our own flips, because we still do our own flips, we still have a good GC that manages that project for us, or a developer that manages the project for us. So yes, I much prefer the private money side than the flipping property side. Yep, that's a very similar project status like that. So a typical scenario would be we reach out to a well-known hard money lender that we have good relationships with. And because of the volume that we do, we actually can get better pricing for our borrowers than the borrower could if they went directly to that hard money lender. So we will structure a first position loan. Typically, it would be an 80-80 program. So 80% of purchase and 80% of construction is what that hard money lender would do. Occasionally, they might do an 80-100. So it depends, but very typical is 80-80. And then we come in with a second position equity loan. So the first position hard money is just a straight debt loan. Second position private money lenders is the equity loan where they're getting 50% of the profits. And the projected returns are huge because the margins are there on these larger projects. And then we'll cover the closing costs, all soft costs, points, fees, carrying costs, interest reserves, et cetera, and make that a kind of a 100% financing type product.
Gotcha. Okay, that's awesome. I mean, I've seen that done, in a small property, but I can see how powerful that is as a product and for these bigger properties.
Sure. Well, and that's not all we do. That's a very small part of what we do, obviously. So we do still do a large number of just straight first position debt loans where the borrower might have their own gap funds or their own investors. And we do lots and lots of those. But we also are very unique in the way that we structure our 100% financing product.
Gotcha. Okay. And so these big, $2 million, $15 million deals, I mean, I've never gone into that space because I've always thought, well, that's a very risky, space to be in. But you don't think so. You think it's actually pretty stable. So can you speak into that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, too, because that was my misconception originally, too. Now, there's risk involved in the sense that there are more dollars at play. But here's why I consider them to be, I don't like to use the word safe, right? Because my attorney always gets on me about using safe and secure and all this kind of stuff. It's not. It's all a risk. But here's the difference. When you have a high quality asset and a high quality location, you have more exit strategies, more things that you can do. You also have more market stability because when market conditions change, typically the luxury space is affected more slowly than the working class home space. Part of the reason I think that is because when rich people want what rich people want, they'll still pay for it, right? So the space isn't affected as much. Plus, then there's also a much wider margin because we're not in the days of your appreciation flips anymore. Those days are over. So the only way to make real money in this business is with true value add propositions. And when you're doing either a tear down, a partial tear down, or a complete gut, let me just give you an example. The flip that we're doing right now, there was no construction work at all, no additions. It was just a complete gut, just because cosmetic gut. That was still a $350,000 budget, just for a cosmetic gut, right? Because the quality of materials that you're using and the finishes are much higher than you're going to be using in a more conventional flip. So because you're really doing that true value add, the margin is much larger. And the margin, of course, helps a lot of things. One, it helps the developers be profitable, which they like. And it helps us actually to raise the capital because the projected return is much larger than they would be getting even on one of these smaller deals. Even if they did an equity first and they were the only lender on the smaller deal, the margin might not be there for them. So when you can project a minimum return, just as an example, that I won't present anything to our investors that doesn't project a minimum return of about 40% within 12 months. And so when you're in a range of 40 to over 100% in less than a year that you're projecting based off of equity participation and profit in a deal, all confirmed by appraisals and everything, of course, it makes it a little easier to raise the capital, right? Because you have the right deal, and then you have those other factors that really make that deal, in my opinion, a little more secure.
That's awesome. Wow. Okay, so let's speak into if a listener listening in said, you know what, I really like what Ivan does. I'm kind of tired of doing these flips. I want to become a private money lender and even brokering other private money loans. What would you recommend for someone to get started in this field? Sure.
Well, the first thing I would recommend is to start growing your network. create the relationships. You can't really be a private money lender if you don't have money, whether it's your own money, because of course we do put in our own capital into these deals when it makes sense and when it's liquid. But if you don't have your own money, you at least, because I didn't have my own money when I started either, but it's all leverage, right? I was using my private money investors. Every single deal that I've ever done has been 100% with investor cash. So you develop that track record and those relationships. And in the beginning too, and I did it without even knowing. But in the beginning, I had this money, but I couldn't get a deal under contract. But I was networking and still meeting up with other people who had a deal. And I said, okay, well, how about I introduce you to my private money lender? He invests in the deal, and then I get a marketing fee for making that introduction. So then I didn't lose that investor, right? Because I had somewhere to connect him to the money and make that relationship. So just and start talking to people. Talk to people about what you do, and this isn't anything new, but it works. Just talk to people about what you do, about what you want to do, and ask other people questions about their investments. How are you satisfied with your investments right now? What are you into? And just have conversations with people, and see if there's an opportunity there.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. So network with people with money, right, and look
Sure.
for ways to help them grow that. And then network with people with deals and put the two of them together. And we it can start as small as like what you said, just making a marketing fee, and then growing it from there. Do you or your partner have an actual broker's license to do lending?
Yes, we do everything through our broker. So we're licensed agents, but we do work through a broker specifically because you do need a broker's license.
Gotcha. Okay. And then, so when give us some tips on how to find more of people with money and like how to talk to them in such a way that, it's attractive for them.
I think part of it is, where do you hang out? Right? Where do you go, and how do you maybe start meeting some of these people? Of course, real estate networking events are a place to start, but what you'll find, and what I have found over the years of not only hosting lots and lots of RIA meetings, and at one point we had 16 clubs across the U.S. ourselves. Yeah. And that's kind of how we started growing our network. We eventually abandoned it because it was not the best use of our time, right? We got to that point. But by and large, I have only found one viable private money investor at a local RIA. Okay, so now there's people that want to get into the business and flip houses, and maybe they have some money. So yes, you can find those people there, but they're not true private money lenders. They're guys that want to do it themselves, and they're looking for other ways to leverage and be the guy that does it. They're not the ones who just want to be a passive here. I just want to lend you my money and get a return, right? And those are the guys that I feel you really need, because there can only be so many cooks in the kitchen, right? So you want a private money, in my opinion, an ideal private money investor is somebody that has a good income through a career, job, whatever it is that they like. They want to continue working in that business, and they want to continue doing that full time, but they just want to find a good relationship, a good partner, if you will, to be able to help their money grow. And that's what you want to be. You want to be that facilitator. You want to be the guy who, what I like to call it, is help them create that multi-generational wealth through real estate investing, right? You want to be that advocate for them. And the only way that you can really be that is to show them opportunities. And one thing that I always went against the seminar business in as well was, hey, you know what? If you find the deal, the money will come. Okay, that can be true, but what if you found the deal, but you don't have the network to tap into to try to get that money to come in, and then you have these deals that you can't close on, and then you start getting this reputation for somebody who can't perform. So for me, it was always more important to find the money first. Because when you have the money, you can call the shots in so many different ways. I've started partnerships, I've started different businesses, I've had different deals all come together because I was able to provide something of value to somebody. In most cases, that was money, right? And in most cases, people don't say no to money. So that's I think key. Go find the money, and yes, be familiar with the deal. So talk about deal examples, not necessarily here's a deal I have for you right now. We need to close in the next 10 days. Are you ready to go? When you've never even established that relationship. No, I always presented sample deals. Here are some examples of deals that we're doing, that we've done. Here's how it breaks down. Here's how we protect your money. Here are the different steps that we use with fund control to manage the construction budget. Here are all these different promissory notes and documents and our attorneys that we use on every single deal. And that's a big deal, by the way, because we spend a lot of money with our attorneys. And I find that most regular rehabbers, they're doing everything they can to save money. And when you're in that position, until you can make that shift to where you're not trying to just save money on everything, and you're willing to spend, in some cases, we've spent over $10,000 on a single deal, just creating disclosures and structuring it properly and making sure that our investors and everybody's protected properly with documentation with our attorneys. Until you get to that level of can I spend this money because it's going to be safer for everybody, rather than, I can't spend that, so I'm going to draft my own purchase contract and my own promissory note on my own, and hopefully it's okay. You know what I mean? And I'm only saying that because I did that in the beginning too, right? It's because you don't know what's going on. You're just trying to make it, right? But I learned later on, I was like, oh my gosh, God was looking out for me, because I could have gotten into so much trouble in so many different ways by not having done things the proper way with legal counsel. So going back to your question, where do you hang out? Maybe you can hang out in high-end hotel bars. Maybe you can, go to maybe certain higher-end events, cigar lounges, go on vacation.
So what would you say is your typical, demographics here? Are they like professionals, like doctors, lawyers, kind of, or are they business owners? Are they, executives? What, like in your case, what
All the above.
All the above. Okay.
Yeah, all the above. My very first two investors, the first guy that ever believed in me was an anesthesiologist. And the first year he invested over $500,000 with me. The cool thing about that is that he had another friend who was also an anesthesiologist who made about $200,000 a year more than he did. So who had even more money. And so that's kind of what started the process. And then I would just find little guys, just either small business owners, some professionals, but even just your regular mom and pop that, I've been working for the last 25 years and I've been responsible. I got a little nest egg here. I want to invest. So it can come from anywhere. And you always want to be looking for money. Always, always, always. Because even our investors with the deepest pockets, once they get into enough deals, especially the size of the deals that we do, everybody runs out of money.
So have you found it's easier to get these investors for equity deals, or easier to get them for straight interest deal or debt deals, or
Sure.
really doesn't matter? It depends on the investor.
It has depended on what I have focused on. It was very easy for me to do, like when I was in Kansas City, for example, all my investors were just straight debt guys. I was offering them 10% cash on cash. That was it. But when we came back around here, the challenge with trying to do the debt piece in first position with private money is that you need a lot of private money. For example, we have a deal right now that the first position lender, who's just the straight debt lender, is getting 10% simple interest, is about $4.2 million in first position. We're coming behind that with about a $1.2 million equity second. So it's a lot easier to raise that $1.2 million and get 50% of the profit than it is to go out there and raise over $4 million. Even though they're in first position, you find more of the whales more whales lend in first position than they do in second. But it would be so difficult. So that's why we approach hard money lenders who already have the capital stack, who have hundreds and tens of hundreds of millions of dollars to deploy, as long as the deal fits their appetite and we know what that profile is. So that's why in these larger deals, we approach the hard money lenders for the first position debt, and then we go to the private money for the equity piece because the capital raise is a bit smaller.
Gotcha. Okay. And have you have you reached out beyond your Southern California for money? Do you have a network pretty much everywhere?
Sure. Yeah, we have investors in Australia, we have investors in Canada, we have investors in Japan, we have investors in Europe, and of course all over the United States. So yes, that's the wonders of the internet. You can connect and make relationships, and we do travel. We hold investor property tours, so investors can come and meet us, meet the team, meet the rehabber or the developers if they want to view existing deals that we have going on, view completed deals, whatever it is. We have a very full transparency model. And we do make it a point to meet our investors whenever possible. It's just that it's not always possible.
Right. I recently interviewed Frank McKinney, and like he does, like whenever he's done with a project, he does this like big grand opening, grand event. I bet you doing something like that probably attract a lot of investors for you, huh?
Oh, sure. And in certain communities, you have owners in those communities, especially the private gated communities, that'll come and check out, and they'll see what's going on when you're doing the renovations. And they might even be one of the guys who maybe their family member wants to buy that house. They've been looking to move into the community, but some of these communities have waiting lists for people to move into. And so you can find buyers for your properties doing those events. You can also find investors, because in a lot of these high-end communities, when you have a guy down the street that has 3 Bentleys in his driveway, that those people have some money. So maybe they can become investors as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So Ivan, I'm sure by now the listeners are like dying to learn how they can connect with you, whether it's invest with you or learn more from you. Where would you like to send them?
Well, you can email me at Ivan, I-V-A-N, at paradigmfunding.com. And it's Paradigm spelled in a unique way. So it's Paradyme, funding.com. And of course, you can just look me up by Ivan Oberon on Facebook and send me a message first, so that I know where you heard of me and why you want to connect. And then we can connect there as well. And of course, the website is paradigmfunding.com, as you mentioned.
That's awesome. And of course, do you lend outside of the Southern California area? If someone has a big project, I don't know, up in New York or something, would you?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we only lend in California. And we prefer Southern California, but we do have deals up north as well. And the reason that we primarily only lend in California right now is because we like to be able to have a little bit better control of our investors' funds. So if we have to go into a property, or if we have to take a property back, as an example, which is not very common, but if all those things are set up so that we can take action if we need to.
Right. And I know that last year you guys put over $108 million to work. That's amazing.
Yeah, about between the equity and the debt, it was about 180. Yep.
That's 180, 180. Oh wow. Okay, I thought it was 108, but that's even better. What's your goal? Like, do you have a goal of how big you want this to be?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think we'll definitely break 200 million this year. But talking to my partner Ryan, we don't want to get too big, and maybe a lot of people say that, but the reason that we say that is we are very hands-on with every deal and with our investors. And the larger you get, like you got these big lenders out there that are lending $300, $400, $500 million a year, and in many cases you kind of become a number, and we don't want to do that. And there's only so much bandwidth that we can do ourselves, right? There's only so much that I can do to keep in touch with all my investors and to keep on top of every deal. So it's one of those things that we're comfortable right around 200 million, I think. We are talking about putting together a fund, which will allow us to do more deals as well. So who knows? But we do like being kind of the small but mighty in the industry right now.
Right. That's awesome. Well, Ivan, thank you so much, buddy, for this really awesome
interview. Thank you, Tim. Nice meeting you, man.
Yeah, good to meet you. I mean, I've gotten a ton of value out of this, so really, really appreciate you.
You bet, man. And if you have anybody with a good deal, just send them my way. I'll let them know if it works.
Sounds good. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching this interview. If you enjoyed it and got value out of this, make sure you give us feedback, rate us, share it with your friends, connect with Ivan. If you have money you want to invest with him, if you have deals you want him to fund, definitely reach out to him. And so with that, happy investing, and we'll see you on the next interview. All right, everybody. See you for now. Take care.
And that's our show for today. If you have any questions or would like to get further training from Tim Mai, please visit our website at www.dodeals.com/Tim.